Hi everybody, I want to welcome you to our Sanskrit Studies and Luminous Soul session. I'm Manorama. Welcome, welcome. Today I want to talk with you a little bit about Sanskrit and my journey with Sanskrit. And it began with my connection with my own guru and my teacher, Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati, and then extended from there. People are often curious what drew me to Sanskrit at such an early age. I met my guru when I was 13. And it surely is an unusual age, at least in the West, for someone to meet a guru and train so seriously. But I always tell people I was a little bit of a fiery kid. I was the last child of my family, and they really didn't know what to do. I was highly rebellious. And I only wanted to focus on things that I wanted to focus on. I had no inkling of what a guru was. I had no inkling of what Sanskrit was. Not even on my radar. I was a very small child. And my mother was so sweet. She said to me one day, "You want to go hear this man speak?" And I was like, as if to say, if she wanted me to go, I wouldn't go. I was very sort of scanning her. And she was so cool. She was never so cool. My mother could never be cool like this, but this one time she was super cool, and she was like, if you want to go, it's no big deal to me. And I said, okay, I'll go. And I went to this program. I didn't know what to expect. I had no expectations. I sat down, I listened. This man came in. My mother had told me he was a doctor, which was true, although he had given up medicine by that time and was fully living in the light of being a guru and what all that means. But in any event, he came in and he looked around. He was wearing a red dress, which is called a kurta. He had a red hat, a stick, and a shawl. He looked around. He said hello to everybody. He sat down on his special seat, and we meditated, and then he talked. And I could not believe the things he was talking about. He was talking about the higher self, the nature of reality, what is the purpose of life, which I had been seeking up to that point. And I had mentioned it to a few family members, and they thought it was very strange for a child to be asking these kinds of questions. And I was like, it was like a eureka for me. I could not believe somebody was talking about what is the meaning of life. And this stemmed from the loss of my grandfather. My grandfather passed suddenly a year prior. I was close with him, and I was quite shocked that he had passed, and I didn't know where he went. And when I would ask various relatives during the time that he passed, like, where did Pop go? They would say, well, he went to heaven. And I was like, well, where's heaven? And they would be like, and they looked nervous and uncomfortable, and they would be like, well, look, if there is a heaven, he surely is there. So they kept changing the stories. If there's a heaven, he's there. He is there in heaven. I don't know where he is. And I started to realize around that time, 10 and 11, that I was taught that we will all pass, and no one knows where we're going, and no one knows why. And Pop, my grandfather, was this extremely loving and benevolent, educated, brilliant man. There's not a person who knew him who wouldn't tell you what a phenomenal person he was. He was a judge, but he was known for being an extremely caring and benevolent judge, always trying to help the people get a second chance and a third chance, as my father used to say. He said that the police would come and tell him, Judge Dalvia, we arrested these people and you're doing this and this. And my grandfather would say, your job is to, apply the law as you understand, and my job is to review the case and apply it as I understand. And so anyhow, when he passed, and there was this confusion and such a big shift, it made a rather large impact on me. And so when I met Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati and everybody called him Guruji, I just thought that was his name, like Mark, David, Peter, whatever it may be. I thought that was his name. I didn't know that it was a term of respect that you give to a teacher. And he was talking about the meaning of life, which had been something that I had been thinking about when my grandfather had passed. I thought, well, if this is what's going to happen, we just disappear, or nobody knows what's the meaning of life. So he looked me dead in the eye and he said, don't you think it's important to know the meaning of life? Don't you think it matters to understand what we're all doing here? And it was like a eureka for me. And I I just couldn't wait to hear more of what he said. And I didn't know what the world of yoga was or what a mystic was or anything. And then I found out he was a teacher. I just wanted to hear more of what he had to say. And my mother said, well, he's a doctor. But it didn't all unfold in one evening, but it made a huge spark for me. Then I noticed that one of the most important things that he did, that he continuously returned to, was the subject of Sanskrit. And as I got more and more involved with him and worked more closely with him, as a very close student, like a granddaughter, I realized that to understand the concepts that he was putting forward and the things he was going to teach, I'd have to understand something of Sanskrit. And I also noticed that it made a big difference for the people who engaged Sanskrit. They seemed to have so much more confidence, so much more grounding. They could follow what he was talking about more easily, and they enjoyed the learning so much more. So, of course, he was pushing me to do this, and Sanskrit has, people say Sanskrit is easy, Sanskrit is hard. It's not hard, but it's vast, and that vast has an effect on us, and so, but it's very natural, the Sanskrit language, and so that was one of the things that I did. I began the journey under his tutelage. He would say, do this, and I would do it. And little by little, I started to improve. And when I didn't improve and got frustrated, he would help me. And then he would say, okay, work on this. And it was like building a small house, like one brick at a time. We didn't build the house. We built one wall, put a couple of bricks down, and then next. Or we built the foundation, then the wall, then the next. And it was in this way, of course, I started to get better at it, because naturally you'll get better at something that you focus on. And so for me, Sanskrit became a conduit of love. It became a way that I was able to understand more deeply my own guru, his words, his message, and the message of yogic rishis overall. It became a doorway by which I was able to understand the depth of yogic teachings. And so while I say maybe Sanskrit isn't for everybody, because I don't think any one thing is for everybody, it was for me. And, I think it is for a lot of people, and it would be and is a wonderful journey for so many people. And you'll notice that people who get deeply pulled into the subject, they possess a wisdom, a grounding, and a deep confidence, and they're not left wondering, is this right? Is that right? No, they feel a kind of ease in the depth of yogic, when they get in the deep end of the pool, studying and understanding yoga philosophy, or yogic dialogue, or mythology, and how that relates with us as human beings, as embodied beings. They don't get confused. They have so many resources from which to draw to understand. It reminds me of, I grew up in a town where there is a famous dam that funnels water to New York City, which has a famous water system. It's one of the 3 water systems that goes to New York City. And my grandmother wrote a book about it, and my great-grandmother was one of the first children born at this dam years and years ago. And whenever I go visit the dam, I could go to the dam from 10 different places in that town. Why? Because I know that town like the back of my hand, and so I have so many resources. I could go this road, Kalabag Pond Road. I could go up, Main Street and then turn at Evans. When you study Sanskrit, I started to discover 2 things that were really key. One, that you have so many ways you can start to understand the depth of yoga philosophy and then begin to apply it to your own life. But 2, that coded into the language itself are principles for harmonic living. And what I mean by that is, I started to notice that coded into the language itself is a way to live in harmony with nature and with all beings. And just to give you one example, there's a principle in Sanskrit called sandhi. Sandhi means a harmony or a blending of sounds. And it's what makes words appear very long, but it may be many words under one appearing to be one unit, or it may be one word. We don't know. It depends on the particular structure. But you'll notice that oftentimes things blend together, and that's because one of the primary principles as we look at Sanskrit and we look at the Sandhi principle is to teach us how to come into greater unity, not greater separateness, but greater unity. And I think that, India, Bharata Deshaha, India is so amazing at this. America is very good for the divisional aspects, and it has, I'm not putting America down. I'm from the United States, and there are many beautiful things here. But I think one humongous gift, and there's so many that India has brought, but one of the gifts that I've understood is that it helps to bring about a sense of unity. There's this underlying understanding within the gift of Sanskrit that says all one, and try to experience that and even bring that into the language and let that be your living experience. So that's just a little something about my journey with Sanskrit. I hope you'll join me on your journey with Sanskrit, and you will develop that confidence, and you'll learn to see with X-ray vision that something is not just one thing, that there's layers. And I think that that's something that you learn through Sanskrit, is to see in layers, to see things more deeply. Thanks so much for joining me for this session. I look forward to seeing you in another session soon. Be blessed. Join me at sanskritstudies.org, where you can find lots of different courses, and where you too can have your own Sanskrit journey. Be blessed, everybody, and remember, you are a luminous soul. Lots of love. Thank you.